Okay, humans, they say, may have a peaked or smooth hairline. Peaked is like the Dracula hair that has a little point in the middle, and a smooth hairline is pretty much straight across the top of the forehead. And they say if a man and a woman both have smooth, none of their children will have peaked. What does that mean as far as how it's inherited? We've kind of seen a hint of this in the previous example if you followed that, but let's start from scratch. They say, okay, well, we have two traits, the smooth or peaked, and let's say if smooth was dominant and the peak, or what they call widow's peak, is the recessive allele, then they say if two people have smooth hairlines, so here's a dad and a mom, he's smooth, she's smooth, they say their kids will always be smooth. It's impossible for there to be peaked. Never peaked. Does that make sense? It kind of doesn't, because you could have a smooth hairline and be like this. And if your spouse was like that also, then yes, you could have kids who were with peaked hairlines. So this statement that none of their children will ever have peaked hairlines doesn't really track if we assume that the smooth hairline is dominant. What if we go the other way? Let's see if this makes more sense if we switch the dominant recessive assignment. What if we say that peaked hair, or peaked hairline, sorry, is big H, and the smooth, straight hairline is the recessive. Then, if we have a dad with a smooth hairline, he'd be little h, little h. And if we have a mom with a smooth hairline, she's little h, little h. Okay, now it does make sense that you would get never peaked. Because to have peaked hairline, you have to have a dominant H allele. Neither of these parents has one to give. You cannot possibly get a peaked hairline out of these two parents. So, whereas this version was riddled with problems right away because the never peaked thing didn't make any sense, this way does work great. Therefore, this way is probably wrong. I'm going to get rid of it. And we're going to do the rest of this problem working with the assumption that a peaked hairline is the dominant trait and a smooth or straight one is the recessive trait. Okay? There's really no faster way to do these. You have to just try it both ways, and one way you should fall on your face very quickly, and the other way everything will work okay, and that's the way that you stick with. So, man and woman have a smooth hairline. None of their children have peaked hairlines. How is a peaked hairline most likely inherited? It seems to be an autosomal dominant trait. I didn't say anything about sex-linked traits because they didn't mention anything about boys and girls having different rates of peaked hairline, so there was no need to get into that. Generally, there's some pretty obvious red flags if something is X-linked. They'll talk about how it almost always affects boys, or that women can be carriers much more often than they're affected, that sort of thing. How is a peaked hairline mostly inherited? Done. Draw a pedigree for a family where one parent and two of the three children have a peaked hairline. Okay, so we need a dad and we need a mom, and they say they have three kids. And we'll start them with a daughter, and then we'll give them another daughter, and then we'll give them a baby brother. Because it isn't sex linked, the genders don't make any difference. I'm just making stuff up here. Okay, so one parent has a peaked hairline, they say, so big H for dad, but not for the other parent. She's smooth. And two of the three children have peaks, so peak there. We'll make that peak, and the middle kid is not peaked, so little h, little h. One parent and two of the children have peaked hairlines, so peak, peak, peak. Yeah, we're okay there. One of the children with a peaked hairline marries an individual with a smooth hairline. Let's scoot this over. Okay, so she marries somebody with a smooth hairline, which for us is little h, little h. And their children both have peaked. They have, let's make it two boys. And the children both have peaked, they say, so big H there and big H there. Okay. Identify the genotypes and phenotypes of each individual. Okay, so what can we know here? The grandparents here, one of their kids is little h, little h. You see where I'm going with that? She has two little h's. One of them came from mom, of course. The other one had to come from dad, therefore he's heterozygous. Can we tell anything about him? Well, his mom has two little h's, and she would give one of those to every one of her kids, so he'd have to be a heterozygous. And the same over here. This oldest daughter has to have a little h because her mom gave little h's to all her children. And then these two cross, and can we fill in these blanks? This big H would have to have come from mom. And dad only has little h's, meaning all of his kids get those. Every one of his sperm cells contains a little h, so there's both of those kids, and hooray, we got everybody.